People in the podcast going to say, how the hell can a mother sit next to his son like that and not tell him to comb his hair? That's the first thing I would say.
This is what I'm going to have the podcast break up where I'll talk to my mom for 6 years or whatever it is. Like the Breakfast Club.
I could go longer. And I have.
Anyway, by popular demand, Mother is back. What is this, number 7, I think? Oh, I just realized that's a fair... Look at how off-center that is, Hamid. Just enough for you.
Oh, you got the eye.
I got the eye.
You got the eye.
Anyway, yes, by popular demand, you're back.
I'll wait again.
So, because my mom's here, it's going to be a little more political, especially since last week was kind of a big week in politics with the whole FBI thing.
Yeah.
So, I won't bore you with... I only grabbed one video game one and one, other topic, because that's really it.
That's fine.
And then I grabbed a bunch of... not a bunch, but... Actually, I might as well start with this. Which one was this? I don't even remember. This is probably ever how the class. Oh yeah, this is the material, so we won't go through that just yet. What was the one that? Here we go. The scientific theory. Kenny and I talked about this. This first happened when Kenny was here, so Kenny and I talked about it. I'm kind of interested in I know your opinions, but you haven't given it to anyone else. But scientific theory of why some Americans don't want Brittany Griner to come home from a Russian prison. Now, basically, this whole article, I thought you were going to laugh out of this. The whole thing is basically about how, because people don't find the WNBA any interesting at all, we're the bad the bad guys.
How dare they say that?
But Ma, as a woman, do you not feel obligated to support the WNBA?
I was watching it this morning. Actually,
on what channel?
Well,
what
NBA
channel
TV. Nope. NBA TV, because it's a weekend. Normally, it's the men's NBA that I see, but and my timing was different when I was working out than my usual time, so I put on what's ever on, and it was more of like a discussion about.
Oh, I thought you meant you were actually watching the WNBA.
Yeah,
did they break 10 points?
No, I was watching a game. They were praising.
What was the top score? 8-10.
Shoot, what's
the fourth?
I should remember the name.
Yeah.
Bird?
Sue Bird, right?
Sue
That's like
Bird.
the.
Hey, you knew it. Yeah.
The reason I know that is because what's that? The not the middle. What's the other one? Right, you have Axel, Dewey. What's the show that you like? That has the guy from Breaking Bad in it. Not Malcolm in the Middle.
Better Call Saul?
No. The daughter's name is Sue Bird. Sue Heck. Right? Sue Heck
is the middle.
Yeah,
the middle.
The middle. It is the middle. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so anyway, scientific theory on why some Americans don't want Brittany Griner to come home from a Russian prison. So Kenny and I talked about this when he was here. Hey, Bobo. When he was here. I mean, it's very hard to defend this lady when, it's so for those of you that don't know what she did, basically she's a WNBA star, but over in Russia. And she got caught with marijuana, and she's been doing this for years. War in Russia versus Ukraine
some
happens.
of them play off-season in Europe and in Russia, right? They play in the WNBA here,
and then
but they make more money when they go overseas. So she's done this before, apparently.
Yeah. So she does the marijuana stuff all the time, right? She's been doing it for years, bringing it back and forth.
Was it marijuana or cannabis? Wasn't it cannabis?
They're the same thing.
Well, yes and no. One's like a medicinal training.
Sure. But
they don't accept
essentially they're the same thing. But anyway, so she gets prison time because all the oligarchs are gone and they can't defend her. So what ends up happening is she can't come back to the United States.
Well, and also Russia's not happy with us right now.
Yeah, Russia's not happy.
They're not going to cut us any slack whatsoever.
So, unfortunately, she's stuck there, which the reason, as I said, the article says the scientific theory as to why some Americans don't want Brittany Griner coming home from a Russian prison is because she broke the law. She broke the law there,
right.
And then she goes, "Hey, America, who I've been bashing verbally, saying how bad you are, please help me."
Right.
So it's very hard to side with this. That's the theory. That's the whole reason why. But they're like, oh, it's because people don't like women's basketball. She's a good person. I like how they try and defend this lady. Of course, she's an American citizen, but I mean, you're still doing something illegal in another country. In the thoughts that those oligarchs are going to get you out of it, and then the oligarchs aren't there anymore, and then she goes, "Please help."
Well, yeah, and I guess many people are having a negative comment because of her stand on the flag, right? The national anthem. And so now when the role is reversed and she's sort of looking for help from the very country that she was making a stand against, Although I was just reading an article before I came down here about her comments, and she did say she doesn't. Well, I don't really understand what the message is then, because she doesn't stand for the anthem, but she's not trying to disrespect the country. So similar to many of these other athletes, I don't quite understand what their goal is. I understand what they sort of trying the message. I don't know their message, and they're saying, but I'm not trying to disrespect the country, but I'm not going to stand for the country, for the anthem. And she made a point of saying, I will not come out and do it. So actually, some of the funny things
is it an out of touch sort of thing? Like, you think they're just so, even as a WNBA player who I guess has eyes on them all the time, maybe it's just out of touch, like a lot of politicians, unfortunately.
No, well, I think what they're trying to say is, in their opinion, minorities are being treated poorly by this country. And they wanted to take a stand on it. And that's how they wanted to show it. I just think it's misdirected. It was never a unified message. That's the problem. So, I don't hate my country, but I'm not going to stand for the anthem. Then that's not really the best way to protest, because
right.
your message isn't very clear, and it's not very consistent. And that's why it almost looks like a backpedal when you read her comments about how my father fought in Vietnam. He was a police officer. I wanted to be a police officer. I don't disrespect my country. I just refuse to stand for the national anthem. It's a mixed message, in my opinion. She's trying to protest something. I'm not quite clear what she and others are trying to protest. I think she intends to make a statement. I'm just not seeing from anything written that I've read of what she's trying to say. So because of that, people naturally go the other route and say, oh, she hates her country, based on what she's doing. So she's not getting a lot of good PR out of this situation.
Well, there's an old saying, any PR is good PR, because before this, never heard of Britain.
Never heard of her, that is true.
Maybe she'll bring in some viewers to the WNBA. Maybe. She's going to come back as a hero or whatever, and she's going to be on everything. She's going to be the next Subway spokesperson, I'm sure.
And I've seen a couple funny comments. On a positive note, she won't be hearing the national anthem for a while.
Yeah. It's true. That's the listen to the Russian one.
Man.
They probably play it on repeat in her cell.
In her cell. She won't have to hear that anymore for a while.
But this trend, I don't know if it's a trend thing, but between Kaepernick, LeBron, this lady, what's that lady's name whoever that lady is on the soccer team?
Megan Rapinoe.
Is that her name?
Yeah, the purple hair?
Yeah.
Megan Rapinoe.
To be honest with you, I'm sick of it in sports. Yeah. Makes me not want to watch sports.
Well, again, I don't know.
You put a ball in a hoop.
I know, but I don't know what the message is. I don't think their message is clear. I know they're trying to protest something. I understand their perception of what they're protesting. But I just don't think that that's the right approach. And now, in this particular situation, it's literally, I won't say backfiring, but it's very ironic that she needs help from a country that she doesn't want to disrespect, but yet does disrespect by not standing for the national anthem, especially in a professional sport, in a country that, like it or not, what I always find amazing, and I'm not trying to draw parallels between these individuals and the time of slavery, slaves in the American Revolution fought for our country. I don't think about that. People who were enslaved by us had the vision, us meaning the country, obviously not us personally, had the vision to say, I have to fight for what it represents in order to get out of the servitude and slavery that I'm in. I give these individuals who had zero education because they were not allowed to be educated an understanding, and I'll say an appreciation for, if I want to get myself out of this situation, they're offering me an opportunity to be free, right? So they had the idea of something greater. And I just look at minorities and people who are trying to support them now, I understand what they're doing, but they're not seeing that what our country represents, when it's done properly, and that's been the problem, what it represents has far more ability to propel them to the equality that they're striving for. And people like Griner and LeBron James and professional athletes,
there's definitely something to what they say.
Yes.
Obviously, I think we can all agree that the way they've done it is not the right way of doing it. But at the same time, if I was in the like, what is the right way of going about it? The only person that I could think of that really kind of went the right way of helping people who are, I don't want to say, well, I guess minority is the right word, but think of Kim Kardashian, right? When she did the thing with Trump and helped all those marijuana cases or whatever it was.
Well, I'm against that. I mean, I don't think she helped the situation at all. I mean, there's some who
but I think
that was the bad mark on the Trump administration.
The process, though, of kind of what you should do if you want to make a change, whether we agree with the change or not, that's probably a better way of doing it than than just saying, I don't want to stand up for my flag or go double back on stuff. Like, oh, I love this, I don't like this country, and then I do like this country, but I won't stand for the flag, whatever it is.
Right.
So I think, I'm just using Kim as an example, but I think of all the ways to do something, that's to make a change, that's probably the best way to go about it, would you say?
The only thing I will say that is Kim Kardashian was a name.
Fair.
Griner was just a name in the WNBA circle, right? I'm not saying she was a nobody, but same thing with Kaepernick, okay? There's a question, maybe they have a cause that they were trying to further, or maybe they realized that they get a lot of media attention for this.
I'm sure it's a double-edged sword. Like, I'm sure, I don't want to say that they do it strictly for that, but you're right. There is a certain level of, I'm going to get something out of this also. I pray that that's not the goal, but I'm sure for some of them, we're not gonna go bat 300.
As an aside, there's always that hypocrisy of these individuals who work for Nike, who have these shoes made, that believe in equality, believe nobody should be enslaved or treated lesser, and blah 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 blah. Their shoes are made by slave labor in another country.
Oh, yeah. No question about it.
That's total hypocrisy.
Yeah. Agreed. I have nothing to add to that.
No, and you're right. LeBron James, which I don't know if your listeners, you saw what happened at his school, where a white young man was beaten to death by a group of minority kids.
Really?
Yes.
You have to pull up that article before you make that claim.
That was a big article. That was a big thing.
When was that?
It was the start of the summer. His name was Limings, Limmings, with the water guns. We talked about it one night. Yeah. This young man and it was at LeBron James's school. And people went nuts over it because we wanted a comment from LeBron James about that. And basically these individuals, as far as I know, they got a slap on the wrist. This man was beaten to death. Okay? It wasn't a police officer putting his knee on the kid's neck in the parking lot because the kid was high and out of control on fentanyl and everything else.
Oh, right here.
There was a questionable activity, yeah. And I'm sure he wasn't, it was a car full of kids. They pulled water guns. And the ones that beat him to death took their phones away from the other kids so they couldn't call the police because he was on the ground. And they stole his car so they couldn't take him to the hospital.
So, just so we're not talking out of our asses here, this is New York Post. I found the article. Ohio teen Ethan Limming beaten to death near school after incident involving water guns. I don't know how it's related to...
the school is LeBron James' school. And they pushed him to make a comment about it.
So he's just an alumni of the school. It's not like
I believe he went there or was going there, and some kids were obviously, it was kids were playing basketball there, and this young man and some other people showed up. I think the other people in the car were shooting them with the water guns. Maybe they exchanged words. Typical, what are they, 17, 18 years old? And the Lemmings got out of the car to try and supposedly calm things down. I don't know. Maybe he was being verbally... I have no idea. Maybe he's trying to calm things down. They proceed to beat him. Unconscious. Kicked his face in. I mean, it was just brutal. Wow. And then when the other kids in the car went to go call the police, an ambulance, they took their phones. And then when they tried to put him in the car to drive him, they stole the car, drove it off down the street or whatever. Eventually, I think they brought it back. So they found the individuals, brought them in, and I believe since this article...
No arrests have been made. And the
Well, this is an
investigation's
older.
ongoing.
This was when it first
Yeah.
happened. There's
Crime
just
Stoppers
been
Office,
arrested,
5,000.
but I don't think they had much of a. I'm sure it's still pending, but I think they were released on bail or no bail because of the no bail rule. But this was at LeBron James, and that's my point. An individual who was constantly coming out and making statements about, unfairness to a particular race and why it's wrong and blah 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 blah. This happens, and it was like pulling teeth to get a comment out of him about it. And he did make some generalized, violence is wrong type of statement, but and that's it. That's the last you heard of it, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, no, you're right. Like even here it says the assumptions made were race-related incident, but there's nothing that we have in possession right now as of June 9th. Any information indicating it had anything to do with race in this homicide. Wow. Well, that put a bad taste in my mouth. But anyway.
Well, I mean, you got a George Floyd situation that burned our cities down. You have another individual that, there's nothing race related. I don't know.
Yeah.
Seems a little ironic to me. And as we go back to our comment about these celebrities, they take a stand. That's fine. But then when they get called out and said, hey, you know what? What's your opinion? Right.
Yeah.
And this was literally on his property, or a school that he funds, I should put.
Right.
What it's called.
It looked like he was just like a donator of the school. Like just gives big amounts of money.
Right. And I'm sure there's some legalities about him making comments. Like probably a lawyer said, don't say anything because you could be liable. A person was murdered on your property and you're a celebrity and you have a lot of money. But it still, would warrant some sort of comment. And he did make a general, violence is not good type of thing.
Democrats pass major health, climate, and tax bill along party lines. Biden signs next week. Now, I think we talked about this a little bit last week. It was in the works. Now, the two problems I have with this. Well, first off, okay, so it's like a $790 billion, $700 billion package that includes extensive investments to new climate initiatives, Medicare negotiations on some drug prices, and Affordable Care Act subsidies. Now, my problem with this, and from like if I was to look at this baselessly in the sense of not looking at the bill as a whole, I don't understand how we could put a climate and healthcare bill together. It's like trying to freaking do like basketball and chess. So when they try and pass these bills, it's like, well, I kind of like healthcare, so I guess I have to sign off on climate.
Well,
so
throw into it what we were talking about earlier. That's also the IRS bill too.
Yeah,
for the 87,000 new agents. Nothing to do with climate, nothing to do with healthcare.
Yeah.
So this is what they tend to do. Sometimes they ask for things like a clean bill, meaning we only want to vote on a clean bill. Pick one topic and we'll vote on it. This Congress just can't get out of its way. It just throws, at a fan and hopes it sticks. So because they have the majority, they ram this thing through, and they had Republican support obviously in the Senate.
Right.
Did they? I have to think about that. But point is,
well, it's 220 to 207. So.
Right. Everything is, they just say climate change for anything because they think their base will think it's worthwhile.
Right, but how many my question to everyone would be, how many billions of dollars have we thrown at climate and we really haven't had any changes? Like there's really been after years and years of trials, since Al Gore, testing, billions of dollars being thrown at it, nothing's changed.
Right.
Nothing. Literally nothing. I'm surprised people who, like taxpayers, don't go, hey, could we actually see like the changes that are being on paper? I can see when you fill in a pothole.
Now, this is, for those of your viewers, will find this mind-blowing. I know I sent this article to you, but I'm old and I understood this article. If many of your watchers are young, what you have to pay attention to, and I've seen over the years, and I just read a great article about it, forwarded to Chris and his family. They don't solve these problems. They never do. Because they always fundraise off of it.
Right.
That's why we don't solve the border. I've been hearing about the border since I was a kid. Okay? It got worse, like in the 80s is when it started to pick up. They never fix no party, and I'm not just saying Democrats, they don't fix it because they fundraise off of it. The climate, they've been kicking that one around. I've had more at least 8 or 9 doomsday climate predictions in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Okay?
Year 2000,
Year
remember?
2000, everything's shutting down. When I was younger, it was what? We're going to freeze to death. Then it was, we're going to have floods. Then it was, perfect example of President Obama getting us all hyped about, if we don't do something, the oceans are going to flood over. And he goes and buys a house in Martha's Vineyard.
Right.
Okay? So all these things, Roe v. Wade, abortion,
They make a lot of
never
money
solve it.
It's
Because
just
they
crazy
fundraise and get reelected.
It's just crazy how with everything else, not everything, but like a good portion of things, you get like you go, oh, where are my taxes going? And then you see the potholes getting fixed sometimes, roads being paved. Okay, where's the piece of paper that we get for the billions of dollars we put into global warming or whatever you want to push, climate change?
Yeah.
And there's literally no numbers whatsoever. Like, is anyone going to ask, hey, where's all of our money going? Like, what's it going to?
The
Studies?
irony is the debate is this is supposed to be the Inflation Reduction Act.
What?
And most people are saying it's going to make inflation worse.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was about to put. Kevin McCarthy on Friday said the bill is, I completely agree with this, misguided and tone deaf. Democrats more than any well, I'm not just Democrats, but I'm just going to say politicians in general, but this is his quote. Democrats more than any other majority in history are addicted to spending other people's money. Completely agree.
Yes.
But and I guess to a certain extent there's nothing wrong with spending money, but we just as people would like to see where the money's going. Like when you go to climate and there's no sheet of paper that I get at the end of the month or the year when I'm doing tax returns or whatever
Well,
that says,
you can.
oh, well, your money went into...
You can go into the government, but you won't want to do it because it'll incense you when you see the garbage that they spend it on. So one of the big things is the 87,000 IRS agents that they've added. We don't have enough people on the border. We're defunding the police in cities. Crime is through the roof. Inflation is crippling everybody, and you guys are going to pay for these bills long after I'm dead. Keep that in mind, okay? And it's not just this. We keep giving billions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars, it seems like monthly, to Ukraine. That's going in some hole somewhere that you'll never see the benefit of, and you're going to pay for this because it's going to be taxed.
But he can do his, what's up, Mike?
So any of the money it goes to a hole. But yes, you can look it up. It's just you when you do look at these things, and just hearing about the 87,000 IRS agents, it's outrageous. Why do you think they're doing that? Why is that? How does that help climate and healthcare? It doesn't. It just assures that they can go in and harass more people for tax dollars.
So between this and Ukraine, we are now an extra $1 trillion in debt, right?
3.5 trillion, I think we keep adding, has been added.
Just
so
in
far.
this, wow.
Like the administration, I believe.
Just in this administration.
Since he started. Hi,
come
Bob.
Come on up.
I think that's 3.5 trillion comes to mind. I don't know. There's so many numbers floating around. But keep in mind, we're in the middle of inflation right now. And the more money you just keep throwing out there, because where do they get it from? There's only two places the government gets it. Our taxes, or they print it.
Yeah.
The more you print,
the less the dollar's worth.
And that means everything costs more. So anyhow, that's part of the problem too. And there should be, climate has to be addressed on some level. Nobody that I know of says, oh no, I don't care about climate. And healthcare, that's always an issue. Every presidential election, every time people get... Lately, it hasn't been an issue because we're distracted with Ukraine and whatnot, so politicians are working on that.
I haven't heard of Ukraine in a month now. I see nothing on it anymore.
Well, he keeps getting money from people.
But he can post in Vogue with his wife.
Right, posting both with Vogue. So.
That didn't... To be honest with you, that doesn't really... I understand it's distasteful, that's definitely out of touch, but it's not that it doesn't bother me. It's just like, out of all the things, maybe bring some joy to whatever's going on in Ukraine. Like, at least something's going well.
Before everything started, and probably is worse, Ukraine was the 7th most corrupt country in the world. Russia was 13th. Okay? So for all the people that hate Russia, and I'm not saying I love Russia or the government of, I have a real problem with us constantly giving money to a country. You've asked me at the beginning. I don't care about Ukraine. I know it's going to drive people crazy. I don't care. It's another distraction from our problems here at home. I care about our own people. I care that that money is better spent here. We have crises here that are being ignored and hidden from the American people.
I think we pretty much finished up on that. It just surprised me that you would have something like climate with major health issues.
Yeah.
Like they just don't coincide. And we're
No.
going to throw $700 billion at it.
And that's the title, and what everyone's talking about is IRS agents. What does that tell you?
Yeah. When it says nothing about IRS agents.
Well, they don't want you to know that,
Yeah.
but that's the takeaway from this ridiculous bill. That I'm paying for more IRS agents. With all the stuff going on in our country right now, is that where you want to put your dollars? IRS agents?
Yeah. Agreed. When everyone hates the IRS.
Yeah.
When there's that single person that's like, man, I really love the IRS. So the last political one I have, which is the one, I mean, probably the biggest news of last week was our former president had his house raided by the FBI. Now, Mom, you know a lot more about this than I do in the sense of like the start from finish. Like, what's all the evidence that we have? What's the cause? What's the reason? Why? You can pick where to start.
Well, they are kind of making it up as they go.
Okay.
So I
Tells
can
you how
tell
my mom feels about it.
Well, no, I can tell you some of the stuff that we've heard.
Disgusting
but
conservative.
A lot of people are calling BS on it. So my understanding originally was they were looking for particular documents that were classified. Back in June, I believe it was the FBI, maybe the Department of Justice, went in to Mar-a-Lago with Trump and his people there, went through the documents, and they recommended put a lock on the place where he stores it. And he said, fine. If you need anything else, let me know. Now they come back with urgent, could be information about nuclear weapons or nuclear information that he has stored there. So urgent that it took them 14 days to get the warrant. So in other words, they're making it up as they go, basically. And they've thrown out they've issued the warrant, what was in it. They showed a vague list of what they took in terms of boxes, 15 boxes, and now everybody's clamoring for the affidavit. The affidavit is the document that says, why do you need this warrant? Okay?
Right.
The current administration has a history. When I say administration, I should say the FBI, FISA court, whatnot. They have a history in the Department of Justice of lying on these things. And they've been caught on it. Sadly, it doesn't get a lot of attention because nobody ever goes to jail for anything. But that's why they're saying, let's see this affidavit of justifying a search warrant on documents that you already knew he had in his building, in his house. And that's what we're waiting on. Merrick Garland, who is the Attorney General, came out and gave a 3-minute speech about it after being 40 minutes late for the press conference.
Sounds about right.
With his cracked voice and sounding about as weak as could be, saying, don't pick on the FBI and everything we're doing is justified and we're going to show full transparency. And we still haven't seen the affidavit. I believe that has to come out soon. And as we were talking about it, it was by a judge who had recused himself previously when he was dealing with a case between Trump versus Clinton. I don't even remember what it was. He recused himself, and he has made anti-Trump comments, which he should not have signed
Right, you
off
can't
on
have
this warrant.
that basically just makes the judge unbiased by default. Right?
He is biased.
Yeah.
Well, you
Or,
accuse yourself because you are biased, or you've been involved in
Makes
the
it biased,
case
I'm
or
sorry.
whatnot. And he didn't do that, and he signed off on this warrant. And now everyone's saying, well, let's see the affidavit. Judges have been lied to before by our officials. And they put down questionable things. All of the Russia hoax and the some of these impeachments, the FISA requests that have been made, they have questioned some of the things that have been put on there.
So I think the big question that everyone's going to ask, though, is what does this mean for our former president? What's going to be the outcome
That his
of this?
poll numbers are through the roof, and he's probably going to have a very good chance of being reelected in 2024.
Is he definitely wrong? So, in my eyes, this whole thing is basically a ploy to hurt his image. Because I don't think
No,
that they'll
it's
be
not
able
to
get...
hurt his image.
You don't think so?
No, because there is some question if you are under a federal investigation, if you've been convicted, there's some question as to whether you can run for office. That's
Right.
their goal.
But, I mean, to me,
make
that would
him
be a form of hurting
ineligible
image. Right.
Well, such as his image has already been, they've already tried to ruin his image. That was the Mueller, the Russia thing. And when that was disproved as being false, President Trump had a very good point. Who's going to bring back my credibility? You trashed me for 3 years. I told you all along it was a witch hunt. You guys dragged me the bus, and now it's like, oops, guess there was no proof. Let's all move on. And after that, they've impeached him twice. Now they have him in New York. They're going after his tax returns. Now they go to Mar-a-Lago and raid a former president's home. Never happened before.
So let me pause you real fast. So one thing that kind of actually confused me was the problem with like things like Twitter and other ones is you had this FBI case, right? FBI raided his home in Mar-a-Lago.
Mar-a-Lago.
Whatever, potato. And then it said the next day or within 2 days, it said plead the fifth on it or whatever.
No, that was New York.
Exactly.
That's a different case.
So it's actually two separate cases that
yes.
he's in.
Yes.
So he did not plead the fifth for the FBI raid. He pleaded the fifth for... Can you explain that one to them too? Because I was a little confused by that. So, right, that case is in New York about how much his properties are for something.
Right. So there's the Attorney General in New York, Southern District of New York, and her name is Letitia James. Prior to Trump even getting into office, or somewhere along the line, she released tweets where she says, I'm going to prosecute him. It doesn't matter. I'm going after him. This is a prosecutor saying this before somebody's even committed a crime. In other words, she's admitting, I will find a crime to assign on this man. Right there, she should have been removed. But
right, that's an actual quote. I will find something.
She puts those on Twitters.
Yeah.
And people cheered it because they thought it was great.
It's amazing how these people who are supposed to be unbiased are outing themselves as being biased,
yes.
and yet we still do nothing.
Yes.
Like, that's straight up. Even if it was towards the left, I would still say that's a biased judge. That's the problem. I know people on the left who agree, like, hey, there's a problem there.
Yes.
But no one says anything.
Yes.
Like, most of my friends are on the left.
I have to be honest. I think this raid of his property tipped the scales. I mean, you're still going to have your deranged individuals that... They just interviewed one person in front of Trump Tower, right? He's out there with 3 or 4 other people. Giant banner that says arrest Trump. And the guy says, okay, so what should he be arrested for? Well, for all the crimes he's committed. They said, okay, name me one.
And then
nothing.
Yeah. I mean, with media in general, no matter what it is, you always have the far left and the far right. You never have the people that are like, if you had a huge line, they are the two at the end over here. The average person, I would say, is like here. And like most of my friends, even though some of them are a little more on the left.
Well, but here's the problem, Chris.
Go ahead.
The media has decided that people that were middle right, no, they're far right.
Right.
Okay? So if you love your country and you believe in the Constitution, you're now far right. You're a threat.
Yeah.
That's how you're labeled now.
Right.
They're putting you in with the nut jobs out there that, are extreme.
Yeah.
Right?
What I'm saying is when you see things on TV, you never see the normal left or right person that's just like, I don't know how I feel, let me look into more evidence. You always get that one guy that's like super impeach the guy, put him in jail, or you have the guy that's like, well, honestly, you have some KAKE members that are like, we love Trump, and that's not good either.
Right. Right.
So you never see the normal people that can just sit down and have a conversation who are on different sides.
Right.
It's always got to be the extreme, and that's everything with news, media, whatever. So,
but it's not only extreme. So you get a KKK member that gives backing to Trump, didn't ask for it, and gives it, and then you'll have the previous candidate, Mrs. Clinton, who was very good friends with Senator Byrd, who was the head of the KKK. They didn't hide that, okay, and she made it how far? So again, you got to be fair, but that's the media. They don't promote that. It wasn't necessarily hidden, but people would be shocked to know that if they actually saw that information in plain sight and said, Let me pause a minute. Okay, everybody, I'm sure all your podcast people remember. The woman erased 33,000 emails. That's government property that she erased. She claimed it was some yoga and wedding stuff. She had a server in the bathroom of her home. She was never raided. No FBI ever pounded on that door.
It's true. Yeah.
And both things are the same. So that's why you see terms like the weaponization of our government, of departments in our government. And that's why, if I say that about Hillary, I'm an extremist. I'm a nut job extremist on the conservative side. Okay? That's just common sense Americanism. You want fairness. Okay? A la Mr. Kaepernick, a la Miss Griner. Equality for everybody.
Yeah, not just to make it for your side or
right.
Yeah.
Right. To have Nancy Pelosi sitting there saying no one's above the law when she talks about Trump. I totally agree with that statement. How is she above the law when she does transactions with her husband that anybody else does is against the law?
100% she does insider trading.
Yeah.
Like all the evidence is there. I don't know if anyone's ever fully looked at her. Imagine hitting 100% on every stock you've ever, every investment. It doesn't. She has to be. There's no question about it with insider trading. Insider trading, for those of you who are too young to kind of understand what insider trading is, let me see if I can get this right. Basically, it's people within a company that's, whether it be usually a company that they own, when they know a big deal is going to happen, you're not supposed to tell anyone. If you tell anyone outside the company, that would be considered insider trading. So a great example of this last year, I believe, of insider trading. Last year, or earlier this year, right? The Biden administration, well, let's put it this way. Nancy Pelosi put, I think it was $50,000 and more than that, $500,000 into Tesla for smart cars. And then a week later, the Biden administration goes, hey, we're going to make Tesla the main car of the of government, basically. All the not smart cars, the eco-friendly cars. Electric cars, geez.
People in positions like Nancy Pelosi, they affect legislation. So even though she's not in these companies, her husband's an investment person.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's interesting how they will buy a piece of property in San Francisco on a particular block, only to find out a few weeks later Nancy's through her support in Congress and they get a rail system that now goes down that street. And all of a sudden their property's more valuable. Okay? That's kind of I don't know about that. But this recent one with what you're talking about with electric cars and whatnot, and they've done something just this past month, I forget what it was, where he made investments based on the fact that he knew certain legislation was coming through. And to say he didn't know, guess what? A lot of people have tried that who are not Nancy Pelosi and have gone to jail for that. So, again, you can't, and that's bad enough, but to have the audacity to come out and say nobody's above the law, it makes you wonder just what goes on in the minds of these individuals.
It's an out of touch. So, we're talking about someone who's lived more than half their life in politics now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
she grew up in it. Her father was in it, and he was Maryland. What was he? Somebody in Maryland, and John F. Kennedy investigated her father for mafia ties.
Yeah.
It was recently released, and she's that's a career politician. The family business.
Yeah. It's unbelievable how, that's just the definition of out of touch.
Yeah.
But just completely out of touch.
Yeah. It's one thing to be, and you have it on both sides, partisan and looking out for yourself and whatnot. But for someone to do it and be so blatant, and then to turn around and say, to do it and not say anything is one thing. That's why we look at Congress now, for those of us, again, we've grown up with these people. They're just so out of control now with their statements. It's like they just don't even care anymore.
Yeah.
They don't hide it. And it's an in-your-face kind of, I'm in power and you're not. Deal with it. You're going to pay for it. Deal with it. Yeah. And God forbid we say, well, we're not going to deal with it anymore. Oh, you're a threat to the democracy.
That's all the political stuff I had. My last two are fun ones. So, did you have any? I know you grabbed two.
I just had one that I thought was interesting. It's not political because
it's not political.
No,
Whoa.
It's an interesting take.
Whoa.
And it's what I saw on favorites. I thought they did a study recently that said,
Oh my god, my mom has. I'm looking at my mom's bookmarks
yeah,
in folders. There might be 50 folders there.
and yet I can never find what I saved.
Yeah.
It's sad.
It's insane
I
how
can
many
never
folders she
ever
has.
find it. So it was a story in an article on Citizen Free Press that basically calling to question that it's really not true. It's the myth about how you learn. I'm sorry, I can't find the article. How you learn.
Find the article.
I
That's the whole
can't,
reason we're
that's-
here. Obviously, my mom's a rookie here. Learning styles don't actually exist in
Yes.
the show.
Thank you. Yes, that's it. So they did a study. You know, you have the four ways of learning: visual, audio, reading, writing, and kinesthetic.
Yep.
Okay. So they did all these tests, and it turns out people don't, their scores and whatnot don't improve
Right.
if you deliver the information in the way that they think is their best learning method.
Give me an example of that. So, like, if I think that I'm a visual learner, that might not be true. Basically, I might actually be a kinesthetic learner.
Well, it was more of you think you're a visual learner, but yet when they took, say, the studies are in there, but there was 100 people. 50 of them were visual learners, and 50 said they were or reading, writing. Okay, they broke the groups up, and put 25 here and 25 there, and gave them the information. One group they gave it to them visually, the other one they did it auditorily, right? Mm-hmm. Or whatever I said, reading, writing. There was no difference in the scoring for people that said I'm visual, but they got the information through auditory, right? So they did multiple studies on this, and what they're saying is it's not false to say, well, I prefer to learn things visually. What they're saying is it doesn't necessarily mean you're learning any better by getting it visually.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, I mean, I can see that, I guess. See, I feel like I am a visual learner. I've always kind of been a visual learner, but I'm like a hands-on learner. So would that be
kinesthetic? Yes, kinesthetic. But that's their point. You say that, but if they did these random tests, what they found was you would learn just as much if they gave you something visually or auditorily, right? That's what they're saying. There's the myth of the learning styles. What they do find works the best is modulating learning styles. So in other words, some things you get audio, some things you get visually.
Right, depending on the topic.
Kinesthetic.
Sort of.
I don't know if they broke it up by topic, but their point was, and this makes sense, some people prefer to learn a certain way. You know, if you just sit in a classroom all day and you're getting auditory, I think your mind tends to shut down after a while. If you mix it up with some visual. And, okay, so I'm going to go back to, I'll harp on this, but they took this study further and they said maybe our way of thinking in general with education is wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe people don't need to go 12 years. Maybe people don't need to start at maybe we need to look at why do we think you have to go from ages 5 to 8? Or why do you think you go from 8 to 12? Why do we have a school day this long?
Yeah, I mean, we've had this conversation many a times. I think especially at a college level, I mean, this is going to be a whole podcast in itself, but there's a lot of stuff that we're taught in college that, I mean, it's straight up just kind of useless. Like most of the stuff that we learned in college, you don't really use at all. But I mean, we could talk about whether a college degree is actually worth it or not. And I mean, we've had that conversation.
Well, that was another article that I
like,
had read this morning. Not to get off topic, but similar to what you're saying. We keep saying right now there's a push that don't waste your money on college. Don't waste your money on college.
Well, you can learn everything online now. There's literally nothing you can't learn online. But then it goes back to this article of like, well, yeah.
But hold on. Let me just follow this with what they were saying, and I do agree. Right now, that is the standard. Whether you like it or not, you need that piece of paper. And it's predominantly right now white males that are being turned off to college education. So what are we doing? They're not going to get those entry-level jobs. Yes, there's other things they could do. That's not bad. But they're not necessarily going to have the advantage that others have right now because they're giving up on that college education. So if they ever turn the quality of it around, you're going to have a massive number of people who will lack that currently preferred status of having a 4-year degree because they just didn't see the value of it. And you find you'll get an entire generation of people that, like I said, now they're underperforming as a group.
Right.
By standards.
But it also doesn't help that all the top colleges are turning away people who aren't minorities. Right? Like, think Harvard, right? They're
they're
have, like, the
taking
lowest...
more minorities, that is true,
Yeah.
than
it's
in
definitely
the past.
Yeah. I mean, we won't get... That's a whole podcast in itself. Maybe we'll tackle that one some other time. But...
Well, I told you, McKinsey, the consulting firm, admitted that all the money that's been put into the diversity, equity, and inclusion, we're talking tens of millions of dollars at these universities,
right.
shows no benefit.
Really?
It has not improved the equality for minorities in education.
Yeah, I mean...
It's shocking that they would admit that, but it's,
But back to the visual learning thing. I mean, we talked about it yesterday with Tim. That I have a friend who's a nurse who I knew in college probably shouldn't have been a nurse because she basically barely passed.
Hey, that's not a nice thing to say.
Okay, but D's on everything. But she was very good at the clinicals, so the hands-on stuff.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. So she wasn't a good book learner. I mean, given she was partying a lot, but she would nail clinicals. She got 100% of clinicals. So that's what I mean. I feel like visually, some people are good visually, and then the reading and writing sucks. And I would say that the lowest is probably reading and writing. If I were to guess.
Well, I'm going to throw this out to add to it, and you'll see, I noticed during the video portion of this article, they asked all the people. One guy said he was reading and writing. Most of the people said visual. Why do you think that is? And they were all young people. They were not like in their 20s.
The one was a big reader, right? He probably read a lot of books and stuff, whereas the other ones are all on their phones.
Obviously, but right.
Yeah,
so
the other 100%.
I think if you start asking more and more people as they come through the ranks of school system, what type of learner are you? They're all going to say visual eventually, because everything's online. Everything is through their phone. Everything is. Nobody wants to read a book. No one wants to write. Very few people. It's easier to just, like you said it before, you get everything you need off the internet for college.
Yeah.
So, of course, everyone's a visual learner now. Nobody's really, I mean, you read, technically, you're reading off the internet, but it's faster, easier, and fun to get the pictures, to see it, to have somebody, kinesthetic also, hands-on. But how many people are going to say, oh, yeah, I think I'll go to a laboratory and learn how to mix compounds, unless you were forced to in school?
Yeah, no, you agreed. I didn't have much I was a psych major and I didn't have any hands-on learning. Mine was all just reading.
Well, and you can't get hands-on learning from the computer.
Yeah.
You
Unless
get
it's
visual
in computers, yeah.
Or VR.
But VR, that's the only other thing. And how close is that going to
exactly.
get?
Technically,
many years.
are you really mixing the chemicals and seeing the reaction? Or is it...
Well, remember that time where I made you do that VR medical thing where we had to do that surgery? It was like an ACL surgery?
Yeah.
I don't know how accurate that is. Obviously, that one's pretty bare bones, but I can see... Oh, actually, I watched a TikTok yesterday of a kid doing... I think it was called like Da Vinci something, where basically it was robot testing. So it was robot testing in VR for medical surgery.
Yeah.
And it was pretty advanced. I was like, wow, why don't we have this on freaking Oculus?
Well, all I would say is part of chemistry is trial and error. You're not necessarily going to get that error if you're doing it in the VR world, because there is no, it's whatever's programmed into it. If I mix this compound with this is what you're going to get. Okay, you learn that, fine. But there's no experimentation. There's no, well, what if I add a little bit more? That's not really necessarily an option.
I see what you're saying.
When you're in the VR world, sometimes a lot of discoveries are from mistakes. Can you make a mistake in the VR world? And I know, yes, you could pick the wrong compound or whatever, but there's other things to science and learning that are outside of the digital world. It's life.
Right, you can't really
happen.
make advancements in VR.
Probably not.
Right.
I don't know about this robotic thing that you're talking about. Maybe that they're taking
It was
to
more
a
of like
whole
a
new level.
training program rather than like actually training in like on live people, like they usually do in, when you see the medical TV shows like Grey's Anatomy, and then they have like the main doctor, and then they have the kids. Well, someone sits, all the other the residents sit and watch. I think we've kind of gotten rid of that now. I think it's going to be all the virtual, just to understand that. And then obviously once you get to a certain point, you can start doing real bodies.
But that's okay. That's a perfect example. If you're doing it in virtual, it's programmed in what's going to happen, even things that are unusual, right? That's part of virtual because that's the program. When you're watching a real surgery, a million things could happen out of the control of these doctors that may not be programmed in, because that's life. It's everything is not computer able to be computer generated, because there are other things that the computer just can't take into consideration, like a doctor nicks somebody's artery and it starts bleeding out or whatever. Can you simulate that in VR? Maybe, but
clearly you haven't played Surgeon Simulator. But
well, I suppose they will get to that point. I just think there's always that one aspect of the kinesthetic learner that you just can't get off of a computer. You have to be hands-on. You have to.
Right.
You can watch it. You can put the glasses on, but I just don't know that it's. At some point, you got to get in the real world for certain topics.
Right. Do you have any other ones, or is that it?
Well, I thought that one was going to be for a while. I had that other.
I still have two more fun ones, but
I wanted to get
like the political ones out of the way, because the fun ones.
I don't think I did another political one. I think I did that one because I knew you were going to ask me political stuff, and I wanted to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah.
How about Salman Rushdie? Did you hear about him?
No. Oh wait, is that the CEO that died?
No, the writer. Salman Rushdie. All right, so interesting story. Salman Rushdie was a writer. He wrote a book called The Satanic Verses. He wrote it, I believe it was in 1989. 89 or 90s. Immediately, a fatwa was issued on him. You know what a fatwa is?
I'm going to assume it's not good.
It ain't
anything
good.
Called a saltwa.
Fatwa.
A fatwa.
Fatwa. So, if any of your listeners are Muslims, they have heard that term. It's a death. It's ordered by the Ayatollah, who tells all the followers of the Islamic faith who are true believers, this man must be killed, because they felt that the book was blasphemous towards Muhammad. Okay?
No.
Okay. So this man has been living with a death threat over his head since that time frame. And he had to go into hiding for a while. I remember when this happened years ago. He had to go into hiding. And he recently was giving a speech, and I'm only laughing at the irony of it, about writers' freedoms, able to First Amendment, all this stuff, at an institute. I'm sorry, I read a lot of stuff. I'm forgetting all the names, but I have it here. A man jumped out of the stage and stabbed him.
Oh, I did see this. I didn't realize that was. I did.
Salman Rushdie. So now he's on a ventilator. His liver's been stabbed, and he will probably lose one of his eyes. Okay? Oof. The nerves in his arms were severed. So he has managed to go this long. The man who stabbed him, his name is Hadi Matar. He had a fake driver's license. It was in West New York, New Jersey.
Okay, that's why I was confused. Yeah. I didn't realize that he... I thought it was like a politician or something. I only saw the headline.
No, he was a writer. Okay? And he was speaking at the Chautauqua Institution in New York State. But he was stabbed by a man who is from West New York, New Jersey. The place is called West New York, New Jersey. How confusing is that? Okay? So he's had this over his head from the Ayatollah since 1989.
God, that's wild. Can you imagine living in that?
Yep.
Ugh.
And initially it was big news when it first was issued and whatnot. And then it sort of died down for a little bit. Every now and then you'd hear from Salman Rushdie. I believe he's written another book. And then sure enough, he feels like he's safe. He's giving this speech about, I think, freedom of the press or writers' ability to be free. And this man jumps up. And it took 5 men to hold him back. And he was still trying to stab him.
Wow. Man, there are some crazy people out there.
Yes. But yet, Christianity is the religion we all have to be worried about.
Yeah, that's a weird one. I will never. I have Muslim friends, and it's such a weird. Obviously, you have like those super religious Christians, like the ones that are at church 4 times a week. But in the Muslim faith, and I have friends who are Muslim, so I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. But the levels of like going to stab someone is not as uncommon as you think.
Yeah.
Right? It's like pretty common in the Muslim faith. Then you have they don't agree with that, the mass majority, but yeah, the Muslim faith, because I guess it's because of how big they are, how big the faith is. It's pretty wild. The range of like a Catholic's a Catholic. Like when you meet another Catholic, you kind of know what they're about. In the Muslim faith, you still have to be careful of other Muslims.
Well, I say
like
Christian.
Christian
Catholicism
yeah.
falls to the Christian.
Oh yeah, like Alan's Methodist and
Yeah, he's a Christian.
yeah, it's like the same thing. Whereas with the Muslim faith, there's just so many ranges of how the faith is perceived. If that makes sense, like how they read the Torah.
Let's just start with the basics. I have never heard a leader in our church broadcast. Now, I'm not saying these people don't do this, but I'm saying they've never broadcast and issued a death sentence to any follower that they felt, meaning telling Christians to go out and kill somebody because they defame Christ. We'd be killing people all day because people constantly mock Christ. Having said that, just that one basic thing. I'm not saying all the leaders in our church are holy men and blah, 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 blah. But I've never seen anybody in our faith stand up there and say, other than the Crusades, but that was a whole other issue and that was in 1200, that go out and kill this person because they were defaming Christ.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Same thing with Hinduism. I haven't heard that either. But so you're on a whole other level with these fundamentalist Muslims who, and you call them radical. I would call them radical. I'm not even sure this man was from this country. I bet you're going to find out he was not a citizen. He probably came over here and decided that was his mission.
I doubt we'll hear much more about that.
Yeah, you probably won't hear.
Yeah. Okay, we'll skip my ones because they're a little out of touch. So we'll just go right to the Discord and see what people asked.
Oh, we get questions. Did we have questions last time?
We did. We had the one. We had the Zia. This one's by Zia too. What are your thoughts on the House passing the ban of assault rifles? We talked about that one last week. Oh. This one is the Newsbreak app. It looks like the Salmonella outbreak in... Polio. Polio.
Oh, yes.
Dedicated in New York City sewage.
Detected. You said dedicated.
Oh, sorry.
Detected.
Tired. Polio detected in New York City sewage, suggesting virus circulating. Very weird way of writing that. Circulation, I would say. But so, I don't think we don't know. Do we know anyone that's had polio? I don't think so.
No, polio was eradicated in this country because of the vaccines.
So what do you think? Like, what? I don't know what to think of this. Hopefully, we don't get polio. You know, like.
Okay, well, this is a recent occurrence. What else has recently been happening? Our border is wide open. People are coming from other countries that do not have vaccinations like we do.
Right.
They're bringing measles. They're bringing monkeypox. They're bringing, and I'm not specifically saying these people are at fault, but our policies are allowing them to come in. They didn't even have to have a COVID vaccine. And they're in our school systems, and they're in our towns, and eventually they're going to be in the school systems going forward. Afghanistan, we brought how many people in from Afghanistan? How many people think they have an active vaccination program in Afghanistan? They don't. So we have managed in the Western world to eradicate many of these outdated diseases. Polio was not big, but it was an issue when your grandmother was little.
Yeah.
Grandparents.
Polio, the polio outbreaks.
Every kid was vaccinated with polio vaccine. And there were some issues. Some had active virus, some had the dead virus, and there were some people getting it from the vaccine. Ha ha ha, even back then. But they managed to eradicate it. You guys all had your polio shots when you were little. I did too. And that's why we don't have it. Now, all of a sudden they're finding it. Now you've got people who are anti-vaccination in general. I'm far more vaccination hesitant with our recent experience. And now fewer people, or they're going to pause before they run out and get vaccines. So when you hear children all of a sudden getting polio, were these children vaccinated? Where are they getting it from?
Yeah. It's just weird that it would pop up. Well, I guess it's not weird when you put it that way, but like, I Out of all the things, I wonder why polio. Like, why is polio coming back, and not something like
Well, measles did come back. There were measles outbreak on the West Coast. It was during COVID or right tail end of COVID, and you didn't hear much about it, right?
Right.
Because where measles come from. You're hearing about the monkeypox because, it's becoming more prevalent and they're trying to make that a hysterical situation. It's not good to get. And they're trying so hard to show that it's passing to other people besides homosexual men. They're not able to make that connection. Hopefully they never will, but yet that hasn't happened. But, you bring these diseases in, you don't vaccinate against it. That's these cultures. I mean, I'm stating a fact. I'm not being prejudiced. These are peasant cultures that are coming over our border. Peasant being, it's tribal. It's not organized government like we have in the Western world.
Yeah, with all the problems that our government has, I mean, there are countries out there that to call it even a government is like an
they're constantly in civil wars. They're constantly. Why do you think they come here? Their countries are economically.
You wouldn't be leaving if your country was fine.
Right.
You don't come here for fun.
That's right. Yeah. However, I saw an article highlighting something we already knew. India, which is not considered a first world country, they managed to pretty much eradicate COVID-19 just by the use of packages.
Right.
And they never got the attention.
Gotta be careful with that word on YouTube, but yes.
Well,
we'll call it the Big I.
The Big I package. But they used alternative methods and they eradicated it very quickly. Not a first world country with, 1 billion people there. And very poor people too, by the way.
Yeah.
They managed to do it for next to nothing.
And the drug that starts with an I is very cheap to make. That's why.
They have it over
like
there.
at the penny. It's insane how cheap the Big I is.
The third world countries have to deal with parasitic infections on a regular basis. So I learned at the very beginning from a doctor who's now in prison, but that's another story, that it's a very common drug. If you live in these countries, they take it once a week like people take Advil. Long before COVID outbreak. Because you have parasites, and that's how they survive.
Right.
It's a very simple medicine. India, they had it, but now they did it on a wide-scale basis.
Not to mention, it's one of the very few medicines that Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Nobel Peace Prize.
Yeah.
Prize.
Yeah, because it kept
with it. Jeez, I struggled
for these third world countries. It kept it in check.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, luckily, we do already have a vaccine for polio. So even if it is coming back, I mean, you should be able to vaccinate still.
Doesn't help the people who are getting it who aren't vaccinated.
Right.
But, I mean, that's a real kick in the pants. You come to this country, for a third world country, only to get a major disease that now you can't work. Now you're incapacitated, and it's not really the American dream, as far as I can tell, to come here and get polio. But I read an interesting article. I think it was a Children's Defense about polio. And I would like to read more articles to prove or disprove it. They had a lot of studies in there, but they traced polio back to possibly not a virus, in pesticides. That it was caused by pesticides.
Interesting. Early pesticides, probably, right?
Yeah.
Early 20s.
Yeah, that it was coming from what they were using, and once they stopped it, I read the article a while ago, and I read it and I go, wow, that's really interesting. I'd like to learn more to see if it's true. Obviously, I'm hesitant with a lot of information nowadays from the medical community. You have to double check, and triple check things. So hopefully they'll get a handle on it, but,
Yeah.
By the way, it's New York. New York has been very pro-immigrant, anything goes, and limits vaccines for people that aren't from this country, and now you miss something like polio that we got rid of years ago.
Yeah.
Decades ago.
The fact that it's coming back kind of tells you something, like, in the sense of there's some poor decision making going on there.
Yeah. Well, and your uncle actually said to me years ago, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, before the outbreak with our border and under the previous administration, I thought he was being alarmist, and he said, just wait till you see all the diseases now that are going to come back. Tuberculosis, we started to see that. Measles, mumps, polio. Who would have thought of polio, of all things? And at the time, I thought, well, that's a little crazy. Well, it ain't so crazy anymore.
Well, right, that's how Rome fell, right? Rome,
Disease,
yeah,
yep.
when Rome fell, which to this day, I mean, people don't realize how.
Athens too.
Yeah, if people don't
Pericles died
realize
from
how
it, the
we like
plague.
to think how great our country is. And don't get me wrong, our country's great, but we have only survived a third of the length of Rome. And the way Rome fell was they allowed immigrants to come in and refugees, and they spread diseases, and that was basically the downfall of Rome.
Well, they also brought slaves in.
That's
You know,
another one.
they brought.
Well,
some of
yeah,
those
just
things
people
in.
that were
Yeah.
not
Conquered.
yeah, people who were not living in countries that could keep up with Rome.
Right.
And then that's how Rome fell. It just spread. They couldn't keep up with. I mean, obviously, medicine at the time was nowhere
Right.
near, like, not even, doesn't hold a candle to
Right.
what it is today. And that's basically what destroyed Rome. And then as people started attacking, they just couldn't keep up.
Right.
So,
Well, and as an aside, we pump millions, hundreds of millions of dollars into these some third world countries. Like George Bush put a ton of money into countries in Africa to help them with the AIDS epidemic. And it worked, you know, it does. But we try hard sometimes to put the money in there, and it doesn't go to what it's supposed to go to because these countries are so corrupt.
Yeah.
And then if we say, well, we're not doing it anymore, we look like we're horrible people. So we put all this money into it. People don't necessarily start vaccination programs. And then when their country collapses, they show up at our border and they come in unvaxxed, something untested, you know. For people like your great-grandmother who came through Ellis Island, she would be shocked after what she went through and your other grandmother, Nana, what they went through just to get into this country. A 5-year-old girl with her eyelids being pricked and doing all sorts of skin tests and whatnot, and having to wait in Ellis Island before they could be released. If they saw what was coming over the border into this country, not to say they would bet against the people, but more like, how come you're just letting these people in? When we came from Europe, we had to be stopped and checked for all sorts of diseases to protect the people here. Nobody cares anymore.
Other questions. So we're going to have to do a 180. I know this one has been very political, but we had one political question, which was the polio. The other one is also came to mind. Wow, this is complete opposite of what we're talking about. So this is gaming. Also, this came to mind because of Spider-Man releasing on PC. Looking at Sony starting to sell their exclusives to other platforms, do you think we'll see a decrease in exclusives for consoles? Obviously not Nintendo, and that it could make future exclusives be harder to sell. Yeah, that's a real 180, huh?
I have no opinion on this.
Yeah. See, it's always weird because, as I said, my mom's very political, but obviously we're still somewhat of a gaming podcast.
Hey, I'm more diverse than that.
We just did probably about an hour and a half on just politics.
No.
That was probably
we
better.
did learning issues.
Yeah.
Learning methods.
You know.
That's not politics.
Yeah, that's true. I just
And you
assume
wanted
everything.
to do politics.
Yeah,
I
no.
could talk about DC Comics and Spider-Man and Marvel. I get them confused
So here,
sometimes.
I'll give you the full run through. So when you have exclusives, right? You have Xbox and PlayStation. Really are the only two, and Nintendo. They have certain games that are specific for their console.
Yeah, I know
so
that.
like Xbox has Halo. Sony has. I
bought a lot of that shit every Christmas.
yeah, growing up.
I know.
Well, I didn't have an Xbox till junior year.
Oh, you poor thing.
Yeah, I was stuck with the
poor thing.
GameCube for
You poor
freaking
thing.
a decade.
Oh.
So I can't even think of what Sony had, like what their main game was. Someone will throw it in the comments. And then Nintendo, as I told you last week, has like Mario, all those. So what happened this past year, which is very interesting in gaming history, was Sony actually bought out the rights to Halo. So now basically they own parts of Microsoft now. So Microsoft owns Bungie. It's kind of a chain reaction. So everything's kind of switched. If that makes sense. So now Sony has certain games that were exclusive to Xbox, not just Halo, but like Halo was an example, and then vice versa.
Okay.
So starting to sell exclusives to other platforms, I think this was an inevitability. We kind of knew this was going to happen about once the cross-platform era started. So Fortnite was kind of the first game that started going cross-platform.
Mm-hmm.
So that meant that kids on Xbox can play with kids on PlayStation.
Okay.
Which is pretty nice. So for things to go to I don't think any Sony games like God of War will ever go to Xbox. But I do think it will always go to PC. PC, I mean, Master Race, obviously. Nintendo will never do it just because they own all their rights. And Nintendo's such a stingy company when it comes to anything Nintendo, Mom. Like if you even
Yes.
mention Nintendo, they'll sue the shit out of you. Like it's insane.
Oh.
They're like Disney. So a lot of people have tried to make Mario shirts or like similar. And they
Okay.
just get the crap suit out of them to the point where they just end up backing down. So somebody's got to figure that out. But will we see see a decrease in exclusives for consoles? Absolutely. I think that will 100% happen. I probably said 2 years ago in our Discord that was going to happen, and it's exciting because now it allows people to play more games that they've been waiting on and play with their friends whose parents bought them an Xbox thinking it was a PlayStation. So
I'm only laughing because I saw some article where they were trashing Jason Momoa and the other guy from
Henry Cavill?
no, Bai Choi Chung, the original Superman. No, the Ezra Miller.
Oh yeah.
Okay, as being like, no, the reason why they don't do well is because the characters stink or something. Because we said Spider-Man and DC Comics and whatnot, and I was thinking about that. I'm like, I didn't read the article, but I just thought the whole thing was kind of funny how they're trashing these movies before that. I guess they haven't even come out. Oh, blundered twin powers activate. How Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa are tag teaming the destruction of the DCEU.
That's I don't know anything about that, but that's such a weird like. I know Ezra Miller is such a problem now. Like he just got arrested for a robbery or whatever in the EU. But how do you put Jason Momoa in? What has Jason Momoa done? He just surfs all day.
Well, Batgirl was canceled. They're throwing them all in there about how.
Oh, just DC. Oh well, I mean, if you break it down, I mean, Marvel shatters DC. We had that conversation the other day too.
Well, what's Twin Powers? Do you know what that is?
No clue.
That must be another movie.
Guys, I know my comics. I don't know. Oh, I guess maybe just because they
I don't know,
are together?
but I didn't really watch it. Actual twin Wonder Twins movie was just canceled. I didn't even know there was a Wonder Twins movie. Batgirl we talked about last week.
Yeah, I don't know what these are.
Very strange.
Yeah. Well, I mean, at this point, let me just bang out my last two gaming ones then. Well, one's a gaming one and the other one's a Disney one, but so Elden Ring, you know Elden Ring, that's the one that
yes, that sounds familiar.
So most misleading item. So basically,
hold on, let me just intercede. Henry Cavill builds his own desktop PC by Cavill GIF on Twitter.
Yeah, gotta love Henry Cavill.
They just throw that into the DC count. Okay, go ahead.
He's amazing. He's amazing.
But he's doing it by the book. Why didn't he call you, Chris?
There's nothing wrong.
You could have built the PC
he
for him.
He can do no wrong. Yeah, I could have. Yeah, I should have called Henry.
Damn.
Okay, so Elden Ring. So Elden Ring's interesting game because, I mean, just to quickly explain to my mom, it's what's called a Dark Souls game. So it's a Souls-like. Now, your son is kind of like a professional Souls player.
Oh, yes, I know.
I do very well in Souls games. So, but the problem with Souls games is once you beat them, which I beat it, I got all the achievements because your son's wild, Mom. There's nothing else to do.
Yes,
so
I'm rolling my eyes.
You have people that play it like over and over and over, and it's not like a game you could beat in a night. It's like a multi-week process. They just did kind of their biggest update, which is kind of a good thing because DLC is going to be coming out pretty soon, which is huge considering we've been waiting for
DLC?
Downloadable content. So
okay,
like when they add new parts to the game. So they have a history of having amazing DLCs, but it's just taking so long, which is why I haven't touched the game in probably 6 months, I'd say, since it came out. But they nerfed something called Rivers of Blood, and your son is a Rivers of Blood main, and I'm pretty sad. I was pretty pissed about that, but they nerfed a lot of things, but they buffed heavy weapons, so I was really excited about that. So we can still use the gut sword.
So as you're playing this game, do you have to get to a certain level before you do the DLC?
Well, you have to beat the game, but yeah, there's oh my god, it's everything's scale based. It's so hard to explain a Souls game to you because it's not like your basic leveling of like, oh, you get to the next level and the next level.
Right. That's
Elden Ring, you're scaling your character, so everything scales. So let's say like at the beginning, I'm doing 1 hit damage.
Yeah.
The final boss is 1,000 hits.
Oh, okay.
I have to scale my character properly to be able to take on a guy that.
So when you say scale, it grows. And
you're scaling your
abilities.
levels, right? So you have endurance, health. It's it's like chess. It's basically like chess in that sense. So what sucks though is I built so once you build a character a certain way, it's very hard to go back. You have to basically restart.
Oh.
Unless you it's called respecing your traits, but I'll probably do that because I prepared for this because your son's a genius.
Do people do that as they learn the game and realize,
I've been playing.
to change this?
Yeah, most people don't. Like the reason I'm considered a professional is because I know pretty well how it works. But I'm everyone's gonna laugh at me, but I'm the one professional that doesn't play PvP, which is player versus player, because there's no achievements for it, so I don't even bother. So I don't play other kids.
So you just play versus the
computer.
computer.
Like I'm good at. Yeah, I go through the whole actual campaign of beating all the bosses, and you get to a certain point if you play right and you know what you're doing. The game's pretty easy, whereas you'll hear people complaining about how hard it is. I mean, I thought it was a pretty easy game. So now that they nerfed Rivers of Blood, it kind of screws me.
What does nerf mean?
So, wow.
Yeah, I'm a mom.
Hold on. I've never heard someone not know what nerf means because.
Well, I know what nerf means.
So
it's the game where they shoot the things at your face.
OP means overpowered. Nerfed means that they brought all the damages down. So that means that you have buffs and nerfs. So nerf is like, if nerf would mean like if it was like a level 10, or like it did 10 damage, now it does 8.
Okay.
Like they scaled it themselves. The company did it so that it makes it more fair. So
I only know Nerf from
Nerf
Kenny,
guns.
put that Nerf gun down and stop hitting your brother
with a Nerf bazooka. So
and then you'd hear
yeah, as Kenny scurries away. So they nerfed it, and that screws me because luckily again I can respect, but I wanted to use Rivers of Blood for the DLC.
That and all the red marks you guys would have on your arm.
Yeah.
The Nerf gun.
But yeah, so now we can use the gut sword, so I'll just become like a heavy weapons man, which not fun. It's boring. I like Rivers of Blood. Last one. This is honestly, I've been looking forward to talking about this story. I told you about this like a year ago.
Okay.
So I've been waiting for this show to come back for 9 years. I watched this when I was a sophomore called Bleach.
Yes.
1,000-Year Blood. Mom, I've been waiting. And then you know what Disney does? They buy it out.
So, you gotta
so now it has to go to Disney Plus. Mom, why does Disney screw everything? Why? Because now that means there's going to be like a childish bullshit show.
Oh, we do have Disney stock, though.
I would sell the stock for them to not touch the show.
I've been trying. If the darn thing won't go up.
If Disney screws this for us anime weebs, we will be pissed. We will be livid. I've waited. I was a sophomore when I finished it. Junior year, senior year. Well, no, hold on. No, I was going to high school. So freshman, sophomore, junior. So that's 8, 9, 10. Oh, yeah, almost 12 years. Almost 12 years I've waited for this to come back. And Disney goes, cool, we're going to buy it. Now my day is ruined.
It's a series or gaming?
It's anime.
Anime, okay.
Mom.
Well, I didn't know you were talking about gaming.
I've waited. No, you're right.
So,
but I've waited 9 years. It is a fantastic show. It's like
are you
going to
remember what was going on from 9 years ago?
Well, luckily people like do full summaries. I still remember it, but it's one of like the top 4 of all time, like longest going and popular.
I forget stories from 2 years. I have to rewatch the whole series.
Try watching 1,000 episodes of One Piece.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
Yeah,
not gonna happen.
This was only like I think it's 300 total, so it's not too bad. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm excited.
Is it in Japanese or English with subtitles?
They do it in English, like they'll sub it or dub it. It's called dubbing over.
Yeah.
I don't like that because like when we watch Promised Neverland, right?
Yeah,
that's technically
that was weird.
Yeah. So it like the emotions aren't there.
Yeah.
For this, I always watch my shows in Japanese with subtitles like a man. So yeah, that was pretty much all the news. That's all I had. I know.
And when does it come out? When do you don't know?
Hopefully October. That's what we're told.
Ooh.
So.
Do you have Disney?
So excited.
Disney Plus. Somebody does. I think Michael does.
I know. I would get Disney Plus just for this. So.
Okay.
Unless they absolutely fuck it.
Hey! Language.
Then I'm
Mother
gonna
in the room.
I'm gonna be livid if they touch
Mother in
this
the room.
Just because I don't want Disney like Disneyfying it.
Yeah.
Making it woke or some shit.
It's gonna be woke.
But I mean, the publishers. I'm sure. I mean, they must have it already animated
must be done,
and
they bought the animation. Yeah.
So I just hope Disney's not like, oh, too bloody, take it out.
Well,
guy got decapitated.
Disney now,
take it out.
anything goes with Disney.
Yeah.
But I would say this: Disney is known for animation, so normally I would say it would make sense for them to move into that market of anime, since it's so very popular around the world.
It is
now.
becoming very popular.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
And also appeals to older people too.
Yeah.
Brings the older people into
Right.
it.
The connotation, right, was basically it was made for kids, and then you realize these shows are not made for kids, because you associate cartoons
well, yeah,
with
anime is
Yeah.
like a cartoon,
Yeah.
but no, yeah, I think it crosses over and it makes it.
Yeah. I mean, watch Promised Neverland, which was pretty messed up.
I saw a great South Park.
Okay.
Did you see it? The Vindaloop?
No, is it?
My God.
But we got to end
Yeah.
it soon anyway. So anyway, that's all. I know it's a little awkward. We're still trying to figure out like how we're gonna do these in the sense of like splitting it even with or 50-50 politics and other stuff, because I know
Ask your
not
viewers what they want.
yeah, I mean,
It's up to them.
I know what they want. I just don't know how to. I just don't know how to do it.
Less mom, more gaming.
Yeah, less mom, more game. Yeah, it's gonna.
Just
Well, you're
shut
gonna have
your
50.
mom
It's gonna
up.
be 50-50. But yeah, another one done. Only thing I have to promote. So this podcast comes out Monday. Well, yeah, it's Monday. So stream, social media, promo codes down below, and all the links down below. Mom, I don't think you have anything to
You should
promote.
give him a teaser. Maybe one of these times you get mom and Kenny at the same time.
Yeah, when
on
Kenny
the
comes
show.
home. Kenny should be home soon, so maybe we could do that. But
Teaser.
especially with that couch, because now there's like a seat here.
Yeah.
My brother, the youngest, decided he's taking this couch back to college, so we have to use the other couch, which has like rips and knife marks in it. Like,
No, it's not that bad.
yeah. All right, we'll end it there, guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.
Bye now.